This will be part one of probably a 2-part and maybe possibly 3-part series covering the flow of this fight. This is going to be looking at the first 2 rounds really, and I didn't realize I was going to be doing so much analysis, and so it's going to be broken up into 2 parts. Let's get straight into it. One thing I'll say about the start of the fight is Sean's main objective is disruption. Whatever you do, he wants to constantly interrupt and stop your momentum from even starting, and the primary method of disruption is going to be that jab that we all know. And again, a jab doesn't have to land for it to be effective in disrupting momentum, pushing the opponent back like how we just saw Dricus jump back in response to the jab. What's interesting about the jab is that he can quickly turn it into a swiping left hook, and we're going to show some more examples of that later on. But that's not a jab, that's actually a swiping left hook, and it's disrupting the guard, right? And it's distracting, it's disrupting, and so you're expecting something to come up the middle because that's what he just did. He just jabbed, but then he goes around the side. The secondary method of disruption is the teep kick. We saw that a lot versus Israel Adesanya. Those short stabs to the body not only keep range, as we're gonna see Dricus, he has to stop, you know, he has to plan and respond, but they're also interrupting and disabling the forward momentum. So when he was working behind those 2 things, the jab and the teep kick, when he was working behind them constantly and consistently, he was winning the fight. But when he let go of those 2, the fight got a lot closer and Dricus was being more successful. In contrast, if Sean is disruption, then Dricus is unpredictability, chaos, and explosiveness. At any moment, he can do something you're unprepared for. In this case, he did a good job of mixing in these head kicks that was catching Sean off guard, and a lot of them was touching Sean. And so he was mixing in spinning back fists, which we'll talk about in a second. He was doing a lot of weird stuff. He's a weird fighter. He has a lot of technical flaws, and he runs straight forward, but he's hard to beat, obviously. Let's talk about the importance of that teep kick real quick, particularly in this fight. So you'll see Dricus forward momentum. He's inching forward, he's coming forward, and Sean has that lead hand out, keeping something in between them in that range, right? And as Dricus is coming forward, he's gonna walk into this teep kick, boom. And they don't even have to land super clean, but those little stabs to the body, what does Dricus do after? He's no longer moving forward. He's stuck in that position, and then Sean can circle around him and get out of the position where he was being backed up from. And so that's what I mean by stopping the momentum. Dricus was moving forward, but then what happened? He stopped. Now later on in the fight, Dricus recognizes that he has to put his foot on the gas and keep Sean backing up, which ultimately ended up limiting Sean's offensive options. Another key for disruption is small, but it's important. Look at Sean's arm. Feint, feint, feint. And what does Dricus do? Back up, back up, back up. The importance of feints, which is key to Sean's low energy style. Sean is good at going the distance in a lot of his fights because he doesn't really do much to burn energy. The feints are a good example. He barely does anything, but he gets a big reaction out of you. At the same time, also taking away your momentum. I think one of the small keys to success for Dricus was the consistent body kick that he kept landing, and he was getting underneath the guard of Sean because Sean was reacting to the head kick from earlier, so he would mix those 2 in, and then those body kicks I could imagine will slowly bring down the stamina. If you don't do things to catch Sean off guard, he will trap you within his game. Here's an example. We were just talking about the jab, and Dricus, he's reacting to straight punches, right? So what's he gonna do? His hands go out. He's trying to catch shots. So Sean's like, okay, if your hands are going out like this, I'm gonna go around. So that's that jab into that like loose hook that we talked about earlier. And when he gets grazed with that, Dricus hands go into a high guard, and he's defending around the sides. Now that he's defending around the sides, Sean flicks up the middle. So this constant, you can't build up any momentum because you're worried about, okay, what am I doing? And he's making you defensive. That's when Sean was the most successful, when he was controlling the pace, in contrast to when Dricus was walking him down and coming forward and being explosive with some unpredictability. And probably the most underrated reason why Sean Strickland's opponents are so hesitant is because of his defense. And obviously his defense is one of the things we know him best for, but particularly, like, let's say when he's backing up right here, and Dricus is trying to close the distance. He's coming over with a left. Sean is he actually leans into the left, but then he's going to lean away from the right. So he has a really good ability to turn his body with and against the flow of punches. So he follows the traditional combo left to right. So he turns his body one way, then turns it the other. And while he's doing that, he's extending his arms, and you get tangled up in the shoulders and the arms that's constantly blocking and trafficking your punches. And the reason why I mentioned defense being an important part of making his opponents hesitant is because if you're in that situation and you're throwing punches and you're putting out a lot of energy to try and land on him, and you know that you're missing, it makes you want to turn down your offense and really be a lot more patient. But as we talk about the intricacies of Sean's defense, Dricus with his unpredictability made this a far more interesting fight because he was willing to mix up his approaches. The spinning back fist right here is a great example of catching Sean off guard. Normally you see Sean reacting to stuff pretty quickly, but there's a delayed reaction and he just barely gets out of the way of that spinning back fist, right? So, and particularly because Sean saw Dricus head into the right, and so he was expecting something to come from the right, but obviously he spun around and threw it from the left. In that second round, you can see Dricus making deliberate adjustments. As much as his technique can be a little bit insane, and like if you see, Dricus is one of those fighters, when you see them for the first time, you're like, how the hell is this dude? But it literally works. And on top of that, he actually has a good IQ. Here's a great example of when he comes out in that second round, there's a lot more emphasis on countering that jab. So taking away one of those primary tools of disruption. He eats a jab right there, but then what's he going to do? He's going to try and get out the way of that jab to counter over top. And of course, Sean, with his great reactions, is pulling away. And when I talk about unorthodox, I mean, he'll literally eat some punches to try and land a bigger shot over top. He does not care. And that's why I was framing this as a battle between disruption and chaos, because it seemed like the more reckless and chaotic Dricus got, the more he was able to catch Sean off guard and subsequently catch him with cleaner punches. So he's, look at him, look at the position he's in. He's wilding out, flailing, but even these shots, they're dangerous and they're landing and they're making Sean, you know, second guess himself, and they're catching him off guard and they're scoring. So all of this stuff plays a factor into the deciding the outcome of the fight. And like I said earlier, he will eat some shots to try and step through and get to Sean, which I don't think Sean is used to. I think Sean is used to stopping people, freezing people. But when somebody's willing to walk through your shots, it makes that game plan a lot harder. Part 2, we'll talk about the rest of the rounds. Look out for that. That will drop soon as well. Immortality Serum, Fights and Science. We are out.